There is a line in the middle of the ocean between two Indonesian islands. On one side, tigers, elephants, monkeys, the wildlife of Asia. On the other side, just 32 kilometers away, Komodo dragons, cockatoos, marsupials, the wildlife of Australia. Nobody drew that line. And yet, for millions of years, animals have respected this invisible boundary as if it were made of solid steel. This is the Wallace Line, and it's one of the strangest, most fascinating mysteries in all of nature. Today, we're going to figure out what it is, why it exists, and what happens when something actually tries to cross it. In 1854, a British man named Alfred Russel Wallace made a great discovery. He set off on an adventure through what's now Indonesia. Wallace was a naturalist, which, back then, meant traveling to remote places, catching animals and insects, studying them, and trying to figure out how nature works. Wallace spent 8 years hopping from island to island in the Malay archipelago, the world's largest archipelago. He was collecting specimens which were birds, beetles, butterflies, whatever he could find. He'd catch them, study them, preserve them, and ship them back to England. And Wallace started noticing something absolutely bizarre. When he was in Bali, he saw all these familiar Asian animals. The birds were similar to what you'd find in India or Thailand. There were woodpeckers, barbets, and these bright yellow-headed weaver birds. The forests felt Asian. Then he took a boat ride, just 32 kilometers, less than a day's journey. He arrived at the island of Lombok, right next door to Bali, and everything changed. The yellow-headed weavers? Gone. The woodpeckers? Disappeared. Instead, he found cockatoos, birds he'd only seen in Australia, thousands of miles away. The mammals were different too. No more monkeys swinging through the trees. Instead, Wallace wrote that the difference between Bali and Lombok was more dramatic than the difference between England and Japan. Let that sink in for a second. Two islands you can see from each other were more different than countries separated by half the planet. He kept traveling east, and the pattern held. It was like crossing from one world into another, and he realized there's an invisible line here. A barrier that divides two completely different worlds of life. That boundary would eventually be named after him, the Wallace Line. But Wallace didn't just discover the line. He asked the big question, why? Why would nature create such a sharp dividing line? What force could be powerful enough to keep tigers and elephants on one side and marsupials and dragons on the other for millions of years? This is what Wallace figured out, and what scientists have confirmed since then. The Wallace Line exists because of something called plate tectonics. But to understand that, we need to zoom way, way back in time. About 200 million years ago, when dinosaurs ruled the Earth, all the continents were smooshed together into one giant supercontinent called Pangaea. Imagine taking a world map and pushing all the pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle. That was Pangaea. Animals could walk anywhere. A dinosaur could theoretically stroll from what's now South America to Africa to Australia without ever getting wet. It was all connected. But then, something happened. The Earth's crust isn't one solid piece, it's broken into massive slabs called tectonic plates. These plates float on top of super hot molten rock deep underground, and they move very, very slowly. We're talking a few centimeters per year, but they never stop moving. As these plates drifted apart, so did the continents. Pangaea broke up. Oceans filled the gaps between the pieces, and suddenly animals that used to share one big landmass were separated. Now here's where Indonesia comes in. What we now call Asia and Australia used to be much farther apart. Australia was way down south, hanging out near Antarctica. But the Australian tectonic plate started drifting north. After some millions of years, it moved closer and closer to Asia. About 20 to 25 million years ago, they got close enough to almost touch. Almost, but not quite. Between them, a chain of volcanic islands formed the islands of Indonesia, and the gap between the old Asian continent and the old Australian continent became the Wallace Line. Even when sea levels dropped during ice ages, exposing more land, there was always deep water between these two regions. The strait between Bali and Lombok, it's not just wide, it's deep. We're talking hundreds of meters deep with powerful ocean currents rushing through. And that deep water those strong currents, that's what created the barrier. On the western side of Bali, Java, Borneo and Sumatra, the water is actually pretty shallow. During ice ages, you could walk between these islands and mainland Asia. So Asian animals, tigers, elephants and rhinos could spread across all these islands easily. On the eastern side, Lombok, Sulawesi, the islands closer to Australia, the same thing happened. Those islands were connected to Australia and New Guinea during the ice ages. So Australian animals, marsupials, cockatoos and Komodo dragons could spread across those islands. But the deep water in between, that never went away. That was always there, like a moat around a castle, and most animals simply couldn't cross it. Then you might be thinking, wait, it's just water. Birds can fly, some animals can swim. Why don't they just cross? Great question. And the answer is, some do, but most don't. And the ones that do often don't survive. Let me explain. You'd think birds would laugh at the Wallace Line, right? They have wings. But the thing is that most birds are pretty specific about where they live. That yellow-headed weaver that Wallace saw in Bali, it lives in specific types of forests, eats specific foods, and builds nests in specific trees. Even if a weaver bird did fly across to Lombok, which is totally possible, physically, what would it do when it got there? The trees are different, the insects are different, the climate can be different. It's like moving to a foreign country where you don't speak the language, don't know where to buy food, and can't find the kind of house you're used to. Most birds that try to cross either turn back, or if they do make it across, they can't survive long enough to establish a population. That stretch of water isn't just a gap, it's a filter, a natural test that only a handful of species can pass, and even fewer can pass twice. Survival doesn't depend on movement, it depends on fit. And most animals are finely tuned to one side of the line, not both. Crossing the water is only the first challenge. Staying alive is the real one. For the birds, wings don't equal freedom. Migration routes are learned, not improvised, and flying into an unfamiliar ecosystem is closer to gambling than exploring. A single bad breeding season is enough to erase a species that arrives without numbers, without allies, and without the right environment. So the Wallace Line doesn't need walls or fences. It works quietly, over generations. Species don't bounce off it. They simply fail to take hold. And over millions of years, that failure adds up until two worlds that sit side by side become biologically foreign. Tigers are amazing swimmers. Elephants can swim for hours. So why haven't they crossed to Lombok? First, 32 kilometers of ocean is different from swimming across a river. We're talking about the deep ocean with strong currents, sharks, and no guarantee of finding land. Most land animals won't attempt it because their instincts tell them it's suicide. But let's say a pregnant tiger did somehow make it across. Maybe she grabbed onto a floating log during a storm and drifted over. What happens next? She'd find herself in a completely unfamiliar environment. The prey animals are different. The terrain is different. There might already be predators there, like Komodo dragons that compete for the same food. Without a population of tigers to breed with, she can't establish a new tiger colony. She'd be alone, and when she dies, that's the end of tigers on that island. Swimming ability doesn't equal migration behavior. Large mammals are built to cross obstacles, not open horizons. Open ocean removes every reference point they rely on. No shorelines, no smells, no landmarks, just exhaustion and exposure. Most never even try, and evolution quietly removes the ones that do. And survival isn't just about arrival, it's about numbers. One animal is not a species. One survivor is not a foothold. Without mates, without territory already shaped for them. Without prey, they evolved to hunt. Even the strongest predator becomes temporary. So the Wallace Line doesn't stop animals with force. It stops them with probability. 1,000 failed attempts leave no fossil record, only absence. And over millions of years, that absence becomes a rule. Now some animals have crossed, bats for example, cross the Wallace Line all the time. Why? Because bats can fly long distances. Many bat species eat insects or fruit that exist on both sides of the line. They're not picky. A bat that eats figs can find figs on both sides. Rats have also crossed, probably by hitching rides on floating vegetation or more recently on human boats. Rats are survivors. They can eat almost anything and live almost anywhere. But notice what these animals have in common. They're either very mobile or very adaptable. They're the exceptions, not the rule. Let's get specific. What would actually happen if we took a tiger from Bali and dropped it off in Lombok? Let's walk through this thought experiment. Day 1 to 7. At first, the tiger might be fine. It's still a powerful predator. It can hunt. Lombok has deer and wild pigs, which tigers eat. So far, so good. Week 2 to 4. But then the tiger starts noticing things are off. The forest sounds different. The prey animals behave differently because they've never seen a tiger before. They haven't evolved the fear responses that make them easier to hunt. The tiger has to work harder for every meal. The plants are different too. Maybe the tiger used to mark its territory by scratching certain trees, but those trees don't exist here. The scent markers it leaves don't work the same way. Month 2 to 6. Now the tiger is burning more energy than it's taking in. It's stressed. Stress weakens the immune system. The tiger encounters diseases and parasites to which it has no immunity. Remember, Asian and Australian ecosystems have been separate for millions of years. The microbes are different. The tiger gets sick. Without a pride or family group, there's no one to help. And there's no mate, it's the only tiger on the island. Month 6 plus, eventually the tiger dies. Maybe from disease, maybe from starvation, maybe from a fight with a Komodo dragon over a kill. And that's it. The experiment fails. This isn't just theory. Scientists have documented what happens when animals cross biogeographic barriers, either naturally or because humans moved them. Take the cane toad in Australia. Humans brought them from South America to control pests, but Australian animals had never encountered cane toads before. The toads are poisonous, and when Australian predators tried to eat them, they died. The cane toads thrived because they had no natural predators. Today, they're an ecological disaster, spreading across Australia and poisoning everything that tries to eat them. Or consider what happened when rabbits were introduced to Australia. With no natural predators and plenty of food, they multiplied out of control. Millions upon millions of rabbits, eating crops, destroying habitats and outcompeting native animals. The Wallace Line prevents these kinds of disasters naturally. It's nature's way of keeping ecosystems separate and stable. These cases reveal something important. When barriers disappear, balance goes with them. Ecosystems are built on long familiarity. Predators, prey, parasites, and plants evolve together, adjusting to each other over thousands of generations. Drop a foreign species into that system, and those relationships collapse almost instantly. What makes these examples unsettling is how fast it happens. No slow adjustment, no gradual learning curve. Just sudden dominance on one side and sudden extinction on the other. The Wallace Line does the opposite. It blocks mass movement before damage can begin. No invasions, no runaway populations, no ecological arms race. Just separation, quiet, invisible, and incredibly effective. The Wallace Line isn't unique. Scientists have discovered similar invisible boundaries all over the world. There are biogeographic barriers in the ocean too. For example, sea lions live in every ocean on Earth, except the North Atlantic. Why? Nobody's entirely sure, but it probably has to do with ocean currents, water temperature, and breeding sites. There's no physical wall keeping them out, but something about the North Atlantic just doesn't work for sea lions. Penguins only live in the southern hemisphere. Even though there are cold waters in northern Alaska and northern Canada, you won't find any wild penguins there. Again, invisible barriers. These boundaries shape our entire planet's biodiversity. They're why Australia has such weird animals, because it's been isolated for so long. They're why Madagascar has lemurs found nowhere else on Earth. They're why the Amazon rainforest has completely different species from African rainforests, even though they're similar environments. The Wallace Line is just the sharpest, most dramatic example of this phenomenon. It's a reminder that the Earth is not one big, uniform planet. It's a patchwork of different worlds, separated by barriers both visible and invisible. Understanding these boundaries is crucial for conservation. Each side of the Wallace Line has unique species that exist nowhere else on Earth. If we don't protect the forests of Lombok, we could lose species that have been evolving separately for 20 million years. Those species can't just move somewhere else. The Wallace Line traps them there just as surely as it keeps other animals out. Scientists use biogeographic maps to plan nature reserves and protect endangered species. They look at these invisible lines and say, okay, this region has unique animals. We need to protect this specific area because these animals can't live anywhere else. Fascinating fact we are. Humans the only species capable of crossing through the Wallace Line. Our ancient relatives, including a species called the Denisovans, somehow made it across tens of thousands of years ago. How? Because we're built differently. We didn't have to swim. We built boats. We didn't have to adapt to new foods immediately. We brought food with us. We didn't have to survive new diseases alone. We traveled in groups and took care of each other. We can see evidence of this in DNA. Modern people living in Australia, New Guinea, and islands east of the Wallace Line have Denisovan DNA. People living west of the line, in mainland Asia, don't. The Wallace Line separated these populations genetically, just like it separates tigers from Komodo dragons. Humans are unique in our ability to cross barriers that stop other animals cold. We don't just adapt to our environment, we adapt our environment to us. We bring tools, fire, clothing, and shelter. We're the ultimate invasive species, for better and worse. So, what is the Wallace Line? It's a 32-kilometre stretch of deep ocean between Bali and Lombok. But it's so much more than that. It's a window into Earth's geological past. It's proof that our planet was once completely different. It's a reminder that nature has rules, invisible but unbreakable. Animals don't cross the Wallace Line, not because they can't, but because crossing means death. It means entering a world where you don't fit, where you can't survive, where everything from the trees to the microbes is foreign. The next time you look at a map of Indonesia, remember, those islands might look similar, but they're as different as Earth and Mars. Between them runs an invisible line that separates entire worlds of life. Alfred Russel Wallace saw this line 170 years ago, and he changed how we understand nature forever. We have to understand how Earth evolved after millions of years, simply because the knowledge of the past will allow us to understand the future and present. And standing on that beach in Bali, looking across 32 kilometers of water to Lombok, you're not just looking at another island. You're looking across one of the deepest divides in all of nature, an invisible line that no tiger or Komodo dragon will cross. Neither will any elephant will swim, and no woodpecker will fly. What are your thoughts on the Wallace Wall and the way humans treat the two islands? If you have any conversation ideas, drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this video changed how you see the natural world, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories about the hidden patterns that shape our planet. There are invisible lines everywhere once you know where to look. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.